I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Jacqueline Marshall. Jacqueline's a former dental hygienist turned self-taught DIYer. Jacqueline, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for your time and having me as a guest.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited. I like the sort of DIY aspect of your background because I have a similar, almost out of necessity, DIY background. So why don't you go ahead and sort of tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we can kind of follow whatever path that takes us.
Yeah. So I mean, like you said, I'm a former dental hygienist, former being because I was about 3 years into that career and I was not enjoying it. I was downright hating it, actually. And it was just not giving me the quality of life that I wanted. I was working 12-hour shifts, 5 days a week. There was a long commute before and after the shifts. I was working every second Saturday. And I was like, wow, I spent 2.5 years and a lot of money, getting trained to be a hygienist. And I just honestly did not know what I was going to do because I couldn't see myself doing that job until I was too old to do it. And it was time to retire and stuff. So, but I had no idea what I could replace that income with. And I just happened to luck out. I put my principal home up for sale so that I could move closer to where I was working and maybe take out some of that commute and hang in there, right? So it was a blessing. It did not sell. And for whatever reason, it's been a blessing. And I ended up renting it. And I bought another house closer to where I was working. And that took about 45 minutes off of my commute every day. So, I was hanging in there as a hygienist and I was having relatively good luck with the first set of tenants. I wasn't having too many problems. And I just want to point out too, when first time I became a landlady, I had no idea that I should tenant screen or do anything like that. I had no systems, no processes in place. I do now, but thank goodness, considering what I didn't know and what I didn't do, I did luck out with those tenants. They did tend to be relatively 97% good. So, and it was definitely a learning curve for me. But due to that, I thought, well, I'm going to rent out the second house that I bought. And I bought another house where I was able to house hack, and I was going to stop there. I still had no idea or visions of walking away from hygiene. And, but I just kept on buying houses and I got to 6 houses. And then I had a conversation with my realtor saying, I think I'm onto something here. And what else can I do in terms of investing? And so that conversation, flipping stood out to me and I tried it. I started off with a light construction or light cosmetic lipstick flip. And I had retired, or I quit the office I was working in because I wanted to go in full tilt. Because when you work a 12-hour shift, I have no time or energy after that to work on a flip, no matter how light cosmetic it is. Yeah. And so I thought I really need to make this work. And I had the affordability to, take a break from hygiene and go full tilt with the flip. And it went successful. There was a lot of learning curves. There was a lot of tears and a lot of time learning, like going to YouTube, but I persevered. I stuck it out. It was successful. And I was like, this is it. I am going to be a serial house flipper. So, and that's what happened. So for 3 years now, I've been a serial house flipper.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that the accidental landlord situation of, people just kind of dropping into it because for exactly that same reason, I couldn't sell my house. Mm-hmm. I needed to get out of it. I'll just rent it out. I think that happens to a lot of people, but it opens your eyes up, right, to the benefits of as you said, like at that point, you didn't necessarily have a background in it. You didn't have systems in place.
Nope.
And yet still it was good, right? It's kind of like one of those things that it's real estate is it's easy to make some mistakes, but it's almost hard to completely fail, right? You can do things
Yeah.
wrong and recover, and given enough time, it's likely that you'll figure it out and the market will help you. And there's a lot of, ways that you can kind of work through it. So, I mean, and that's really kudos to you for realizing it quickly and then just kind of continuing the process, right? Continuing.
Yeah. I mean, I saw an opportunity. I didn't know I was on a road of opportunity, but I still went with it blindly. And I think my story, I mean, it just goes to show, no, you don't have to have it all figured out to get started or be successful. And even if, say, I had thought about designs of becoming a landlady and I studied or watched podcasts for 6 months or to a year, you're never going to have it all figured out ever. Even the most seasoned veteran investor, they have learning curves. They still have roadblocks. That's what I've been finding out, at least. And I mean, you're never going to have it figured out. And so you might as well, even if you don't know what you're doing, just start, because you're going to have learning curves. You're going to have growing pains no matter what. And one way or the other, no matter how, if you're seasoned or unseasoned, you're still going to have to deal with it and find solutions for whatever you're faced with it. Because I mean, you have to be in the game to learn the game, and you're not going to know what you have to deal with or learn unless you're actually doing it. So, and that's definitely been when I became a landlady. I was learning as I was going. And yeah, so there were some growing pains.
Yeah, it's so true. It's a great point. I mean, virtually everyone I've talked to in terms of, however they got started in real estate and where they are now, everyone's like, just start. That's how you get going. That's how you build from there. Just get started. However it is, get started. And then, you work through it. It's there's a saying that I really like. It goes, it doesn't get easier. You just get better. Right. So it's the same process as the first time you do it, as the 10th time you do it. It's just you're better at it now. So it's kind of like you just figure out those things, you work through it, you find whatever roadblocks you come up against, you beat those roadblocks, you move on to the next one, and then on the next time you know what roadblocks to expect, and then some different ones come up. So it's just getting started. And I think that's a really good sort of message to start with, even just that you did that you sort of accidentally fell into it, but then saw the opportunity and didn't stop, right? You didn't say, oh, well, I just rent that house out and now I'm done. So you went through it. Tell me, so when you decided to start flipping, what market are you doing this all in the same market? Are you sort of remotely?
Pretty much. Yeah, I'm here in Ontario. So okay. I'm in Canada. So yeah. And yeah, the rentals, the flipping, it was all relatively like where I was living, my principal home, as when I was working as a hygienist. And then I got bidded out in that area. The landscape changed in the real estate market. So I went from being the only person putting a bid on a house, maybe like 2 or 3 offers on a house. It went from 1 to 3 to 30. And I couldn't compete against 30 offers. There was no way I could come in with, and I was already coming in with a clean offer. Like my offers were like cash, quick closing. If you need an extension on the closing, I am flexible. I'll give you up to 30 days. All cash, no conditions, no inspections. Like I couldn't come in any cleaner, except, to go, okay, in order to get the house, I have to go $150,000 over, and as a flip, that just doesn't make sense. That would never work out in the numbers. So I ended up relocating myself to another town that was 5 hours away. And it worked out well. I had some more success there for the past 2 years. And I've been in that market now during the whole COVID thing that's been going on the past 2 years. And the landscape has changed down there again, because so many people in Toronto, which is 5 hours away from that market, 4.5, 5 hours, a lot of people were working from home. Working conditions had changed. So now everybody is migrating from city because they're like, hey, I'm stuck working from home. I don't want to be cooped up in a small apartment or house with no backyard. So they were selling like crazy and migrating, to places like where I was in the community I was in now, so that they could get more for the bang for their buck. They've got a huge backyard now. They've got a double garage maybe. So, so the landscape changed again on me. So
Yeah, yeah. But it's another just example of, you hit a roadblock, you adapted to it, you moved to a different market. Hopefully you don't have to keep moving all the time, but
no, I think with this too, you've got to be open. There's so many different strategies and different ways you can invest. And certainly now I want to kind of not step away completely, not completely retire from flipping, but just with the cumulative experience as a landlady and just what I've curated, my knowledge with real estate investing, I'm pivoting again. So I have a multifamily that's coming up for closing, knock on wood. I don't want to jinx myself. So that's supposed to be closing in not too long. And so I'm just pivoting into multifamily. And I feel more confident about that because obviously I have some systems and processes. I know now that I should tenant screen and things like just simple little things like that, do some background checks, so I'm definitely going into it with my eyes more wide open. That's definitely going to mitigate risk, I think. And
so were you, I know you didn't tenant screen the first one, but were you sort of self-managing your rentals?
Yeah, no, I managed everything. Everyone's pretty been, I've never had to evict anybody. And I have amazing tenants. And even during this whole pandemic, the past 2 years, everybody has paid their rent on time. I haven't had that, hey, I'm not going to pay because this is what's going on in the world. I haven't experienced that, which has been the experience for some people. I've been hearing some horror stories on both sides of the border, Yeah. But I haven't had any of that. I've had really good luck, and I kept good communication with my tenants too. But I think we're kind of on the back end of it now. So the world is kind of normalizing, at least here in Canada, and everybody's kind of going back to work. Things are open, so I don't really have to worry about it moving forward. But I've had some good luck. I have never had to evict anybody. I've never had, when it's a tenant turnover, I've never had a place trashed. I mean, it needs a deep cleaning. It needs a fresh coat of paint, but that's to be expected. But I mean, you kind of want to, it's just like if you went to a hotel, you check into a hotel, you expect clean sheets on the bed, right? When you go into, so, I mean, regardless of how long a tenant stays with me, I always give it a fresh coat of paint, and just stay on top of things and repairs and things like that. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there's going to be some level of turnover no matter what. And it's just, if you've got good tenants and they're not making that turnover into more renovations, then that's obviously a much more ideal situation. So, I mean, it sounds like despite not screening tenants, you've lucked out in terms of tenant quality. And I feel like people are nicer in Canada anyway. So maybe that's just,
oh, we've got our meanies too.
Yeah.
But I went with it was only the first year that I was a landlady that I didn't screen. Like when I rented the second house out, I knew, I started giving out applications and fact checking the application and then sitting down with them with a lease and things like that. So yeah.
Got more into background checks and things like that.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. Well, let's talk a little bit about the DIY component, because as I mentioned, that's sort of near and dear to my heart. So how did that start for you? What did it look like? I know you said the first flip was a bit of a cosmetic flip. I'm curious kind of how that progression looked for you, because I know, like I said, I know what it was for me, but I'm always interested in how other people get to that level.
Yeah. So I mean, the first one, it just really benefited from upgrades, like updating and things like that. It didn't need anything like a roof or waterproofing, or there was no room to put in a second bathroom, so I wasn't able to put that value add on it. But it just really benefited from carpet, painting, updating the kitchen with some paint. That was the first flip I did. So I didn't want to get myself, that would have been in over my head, like, ripping out the kitchen and installing new kitchens. But that first one was definitely a learning experience. I learned a lot just from YouTube, reaching out to people who were experienced, and just talking to the people at the big box stores and saying, hey, this is what I need. This is the tool I need. And that's where the YouTube videos really came in. I learned what tool, what product you should use for what job, even if it's so much as painting, because there's all those little tips and tricks that you can do. And that's what separates it from it looking professional and from a really bad DIY.
Yep.
And
painting's
and
not
any
painting.
big expensive tools I needed, I just rented them because there were so many options and I didn't know which one to buy. So I just kept like the wet tile saw when I was doing the tiling. I just rented like, I think 3 different wet tile saws, and I was like, okay, I don't like this one. And then I decided on that's the one I bought. And so yes, that's a good way to learn too, just what tools you want, because some aren't very user friendly and they might not operate the way that works for you. So that's a big investment. My wet tile saw was like almost $1,000. So you don't want to spend that kind of money and find out that you don't like it. So.
Yes, I know that well. I've bought the wrong tools before as well, and it is frustrating. I like that actually. Sort of renting out a couple of different ones to see what you like and what works for you. So it's a really good idea. So you've been painting, you've done tiling. What else? To what extent are you doing it yourself, and how much are you sort of putting out, to contractors? And that I would imagine that as you progress, you hand off more and more, because then you're really more of managing it, but maybe not.
No, not at all. So I mean, I graduated, like the flips, they required more and more construction.
Right.
And I graduated into houses that maybe need a new roof. They might need new windows. I might have the potential. If it fits in I never go over budget. That's non-negotiable with me. I won't spend more than, this is it. Because I don't want to get into trouble. But no, my confidence, my skill, my knowledge just kept them increasing. And I got to the point where it's like, yeah, I'm just ripping everything out like a bathroom to the studs, and then re-drywalling everything all by myself, and just ripping out the kitchens and putting the kitchen in, installing it by myself. Just everything. It just got easier and easier. I mean, there was frustrations, but no, when I got into the big things like roofing, I hired that out. If it was roughing in a second bathroom, I hired plumbers to do that. And then I would get them to get it to a point where the flange was there in the floor. And then I took over from there. I just said, yeah, your job is done. Just put the flange in, just do all the piping, correct piping. Because like with those old houses, there's an opportunity to clean things up too. Because there's always, like I've found in my experience, a couple of flips, there's all these old, not being used pipes and all of this. And so I get the plumber just to clean all that out, and and then you're kind of connecting like new stuff with old stuff, and only somebody experienced would know how to do that, so I just leave it to the professionals.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of that plumbing, I mean, I don't know what code is in Canada, but some of that plumbing and electrical stuff is, you're not sort of allowed to do it yourself. You have to have, to some extent, you need a licensed professional to do it, depending on what the codes are in your city. So no, that's super cool. I've done all of those things, right? Using YouTube, just figuring it out as you go along. It's very cool, but it's really satisfying. And when you finish a project like that, and especially like you're flipping these houses, I'm sure you've done all of that finished work, the tiling, the painting. Someone comes in and buys it. It's very rewarding to see that they like what you've done, and they're willing to pay for it and everything. So
there's a pride factor there too, because I'm just like, I step back when I'm done, I'm like, damn, I did this. And then somebody comes in and they love it enough to buy it and make it their home. It's like, okay, that's a good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just a very cool sense of accomplishment, just to do it, and then to have someone else, sort of validating your work by actually coming in and buying it is a very cool feeling. I'm sure. It's great. I know exactly, sort of that process. I started with, it was my own house, but it was similar thing. It was just like an out of necessity sort of thing. And I'm like, I don't have any money, so I guess I better figure this out. And it progressed to, you know, I've done it on many houses, and I've worked for contractors. Like I've learned all that stuff. And I think it's just a matter of doing it and getting in there. It's the same thing as starting with real estate, right? You just need to do it. And then you'll be, once you do it, then, you know, if you tile something, well, now you know how to use the tile saw, and you can do a little more complex project and stuff. So it's very, very cool. I like that a lot. So how many flips have you done? Sounds
I've
like
done 8.
Yeah, awesome.
8.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, like, time frame for you. If you're doing most of it yourself, how obviously there's a market component to I mean, we've been in a sort of a rising market for a while, but there's obviously that concern of, it sounds like you're very good about sticking to budget, so that's great, but you also have to figure out what your, you know, after repair value is going into the project, and then you want to make sure that you get out of the project before that potentially changes. So how are you managing, obviously you said you left being a hygienist, so you're dedicating your time to this, but do you feel like the time frames are difficult, or no, you're kind of getting it done?
No, I mean, I complete everything in about like 3.5 to 5 months on my own. Even, you know, even if there's a lot of things to do, I have great time management. So like even before I close on a flip, I've got everything bought. I've got everything ordered. And that's only simply because I'm allowed 1 to 2 walkthroughs before closing day.
Yeah.
So when my offer is accepted, like for example, for the last house, I knew it needed new windows. And I know that even in the best of times, that can take a long time to come.
6 weeks minimum.
So when my offer got accepted on that house, the guy that I knew was going to be installing the windows, I had him come with me and my agent and show up for my walkthrough. I said, measure everything and let's get this ordered. And that was like 2 weeks before closing date. Because my offer got accepted. We were closing 2 weeks. So my offer got accepted. The next day I had my first walkthrough because I wanted to get the measurements for those windows in place. And I wanted him to get those ordered that day and get the ball rolling. And so, yeah, I just get the ball rolling. And then on my walkthrough, I measure everything. So I know how much flooring I need. I get an idea of the decor. So I know what light fixtures, what curtains and everything like so. In those 2 weeks, I've got everything ordered. So the day from the lawyer that when I get my key, I'm showing up with my truck and I'm literally unloading all the flooring, all the painting, all the light fixtures, everything. It's all there. The cabinets, I usually buy the cabinets from IKEA from the as is sections, 50% off, and they're already assembled. So then I just set up the cabinets, I put a sheet of plywood on, and then that's my workstation for all my tools until I decide to set it up and get the granite countertops in and stuff like that. So, yep.
This is all like fantastic advice to anyone.
I hit the ground running.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who has any aspiration to do flips, I mean, even if you're not doing it yourself, this is fantastic advice. Like already having all of that stuff lined up, because I mean, when you say 3.5 to 5 months time frame, like I know people flipping houses that have crews that don't get it done in 3.5 to 5 months. Like that's you should.
I was doing a flip. We had a bet. It was a friendly flipper bet going on. I did a flip in the town that I was in. And so the day I closed, it doesn't take long for people on the street to realize that I'm the one doing the work, because obviously everybody, they see me coming in and out. I've got the truck backed up to the front door. I'm in and out. I'm in my grubbies, you know. It doesn't take too long for everyone to figure out who's doing the work, right? So across the street, 2 doors down, this other flipper situation, it was a team of 3 guys, and they started their flip the same week that I started mine. And they packed up 4:30, 5 o'clock. They went home regardless. I stayed in my flips, And if I could work till 12 o'clock at night, and that's basically what I did. I worked till I dropped and kept working and just kept going. I have no TV, I have no radio. It's focus about this. I'm a one-woman team unless I'm hiring people to do things that I can't do, like electrical or the roof or whatever. And I worked more hours. I worked more hours than those three guys did. And we finished, they did a completed, finished basement, put in a second bathroom and just everything. And we finished at the same time. They put their house up for sale, and then a week later, I put my flip up for sale.
Yeah, yeah, I believe it, and I think that, I mean, there's a lot of courses out there, and I don't think that all the courses have a lot of value, but I think that you could make a course on.
Well, I mean, you can't teach work ethics. I don't think.
No, you can't teach work ethic, and I don't even, like I said, like I don't even necessarily think I think it's independent. What you're doing, a lot of it is independent on to the fact that you're doing it yourself, right? Because that organization, having everything ordered ahead of time, having your windows, like I think a lot of people that try out flipping, they don't know that it takes 6 weeks or more to get windows. I think a lot of people don't.
Oh, try 2 to 4 months sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, right. It's like 6 weeks is bare minimum, and it's and often longer than that. Same thing with doors. Same thing, if you're getting, you're making use of the IKEA cabinets, but if you want anything, even semi-custom, like the stuff you would order online, that's going to take you 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, all of that takes time. And so if that's already happening before you even have it under contract, like I think a lot of people, they wait till they close, then go in and do all of those measurements and orders. And it's like, you're already a month at least behind at that point on your time frame. So it's like, if people are using, people are using hard money loans or something like that to get through flip, you're just paying more interest. I mean, it's just, so yes, you can't teach work ethic, but you can, the systems that you have in place and the way that you're doing that, I think is really, really good. Just, I mean, I'm sure we've only scratched the surface, but just even those few little tidbits, I think are.
Yeah, I mean, time is money too, right? And so I stay in my flips. It's not because I don't have another place to stay, but it just makes for better productivity. And I don't want to be sitting on this flip very long because it's going to cost me money, and it needs to be flipped, in a timely fashion. And so being there and working, I mean, I worked 12-hour shifts as a hygienist, for heaven's sakes, and I did a 2-hour commute to get to that 12-hour shift. And then I did, so, add those hours up. So, I mean, if I can put those kind of hours in per day to make only this kind of money, but then if I translate it and put those same hours into a job that's going to create me more wealth, there's my motivation. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So you put those hours in. Now, is there sustainability in that? No, of course not. I mean, I don't want to keep flipping until I'm too old and decrepit to do that either. But I mean, I take that money and, you invest it in multifamily, you invest it over here and things that are more passive. So you got to have that plan too, right?
Right. So. Right. Yeah, no, I was actually going to ask you how you felt about the sustainability of that type of, like, yes, work ethic is extremely important, but at some point, like working 14-hour days every day forever is just can't do it. No,
I don't want to.
Right. Exactly. Right. You can't do it physically or mentally, and probably you don't want to do that forever. That's not the end goal, but I talk a lot about this with people, with other guests and things like that. And, just what you're talking about now is you're putting in those hours now in the short term, which in the scheme of a life, it's short term, right? Even if you do this for a couple of years, it's short term. A lot of people think a short term is like a day or two, right? But it's realistically, when you're trying to create yourself a better future, short term might be a few years. And so if you put in that work now for a few years, and then you're taking that money and you're doing smart things with it, you mentioned putting it into multifamily, whatever way you want to, whatever method you want to use for wealth building, if you can do that for a few years, then you're going to be set. and then your lifestyle is going to be able to, sort of completely switch, where it's like, now if you want to do flips, you don't necessarily have to be the one there that's there 14 hours a day. Sort of run the cruise, or you can switch to investing passively, or what, what I mean. You just have those systems in place, and then have enough income to kind of shift over to whatever is maybe a little bit more easy. But I think also, like, someone with a work ethic like you have, you're not just going to stop working, right? You're not just going to be like, okay, I did enough now, I'm done. You're still going to have, you're still going to put,
I mean, if I live till I'm 100, I want to be busy doing something, like I just need to be productive. I am that kind of person, and I need to be constantly challenged too, which is another reason why the flips have gotten a little more difficult over it. Like, I was like, okay, I've learned how to do this. I've mastered this. Now let's learn something else. Let's learn something else. Right. So I'm that type of personality too. So, yeah.
Yeah. I've mastered paint and tiles, so let me do an entire gut kitchen or something like, it's there's definitely those step up levels that come. And it's again, it's that, sort of sense of accomplishment. And then I would think that the more work a flip needs, sort of bigger reward that you also can get from it. There's probably a bigger spread on those really intense renovations versus the more cosmetic that's just, sort of paint and tile. So really cool. I think that some of those things that, again, I really think is probably just scratching the surface, but the systems that you're,
I'm going to put it in a book someday, so don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Right. A book, something to get it out there other than my little podcast. I think it'll be, it's great information for people that want to give it a shot. I think you could really offer a lot of value to teaching others. So cool. All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. There's just a few questions I like to ask each guest. The first one's related to the name of the show, being Know Your Why. So, Jacqueline, what is your why? What motivates you and drives you, aside from being a hard worker? Kind of, what's your motivating factors?
I think I could write a book about that too, just alone. I mean, there's a lot of things. I was brought up by a single mom, and money was tight, and she passed away and due to breast cancer. And I found out at a very young age that dying is expensive, even here in Canada. Even with our healthcare system, it takes a lot of money, and that really scared me. And I was in my early 20s, and it was a very growing up moment. And I was very motivated to be financially stable as I grew older, or if I found myself in my mom's situation. And so I think, and that was one of the reasons why I became a dental hygienist, because I thought it was going to give me that, financial stability. And I found out that, well, no, it really wasn't. And also I didn't like the job. It was just sucking the essence out of me. And, I don't have much patience or tolerance staying in a situation where I'm not happy, whether I'm looking consciously for the solution to get out of it or into it or something else. Sooner or later, I would have actively looked for something else, but I just happened to fall into it by being a landlady. But, I mean, the why is just, I just want to live life on my terms. And I envision a retirement for myself, and something needs to bankroll that so that I can experience and have that come to fruition for me, and just that stability. And I'm glad I did, because this past 2 years has been very financially an upheaval for a lot of people. And I didn't experience that. If I had stayed as a hygienist, I wouldn't have had that financial stability or anything, not as much as what I've had, being due to what I'm doing. So that's definitely motivated me. Like, yes, I'm on to something here. I got to keep doing it. And so there's a lot of whys, I guess.
Yeah, I find that I ask everybody that question, and I think, and it, sort of similar for me, the it's not always just one thing, right? There's maybe a few different really strong drivers. And also I find it shifts over time. Like people's why, your why when you're 20, when you're 40, when you're 60, it's going to be different. So
Yeah, for sure.
It's always just interesting to hear kind of, to me, like hearing from successful people, what pushed them to get them there, what pushes, because also I think at some point when you may reach a level of success, and some people would say, well, why keep going? But I think again, it's that why, that whatever your personal why is, that keeps you going in whatever capacity that means. So it's interesting, obviously, name of the podcast, but it's a very interesting component to me of people's success. All right, so next question is, can you tell us something about yourself that isn't common knowledge, like maybe a hobby or a special skill that you have? Obviously, we now know you're a skilled DIYer.
A lot of people don't know. I don't know if you know this, but here in Canada, we have a province, Newfoundland and Labrador. Okay. And when I tell people I was born and raised in Newfoundland, they're just like, well, you don't have a Newfoundland accent. And that's because when I came to the mainland, that's what we call Ontario. Anybody born on the rock, Newfoundland, when you come to the mainland, it's nobody could understand me. I'm speaking English, but nobody understood me. They were always going, what? And so for 2 years, I really worked hard to enunciate and speak English the way everybody else did.
That's so fun. The more you talk, the more we have in common. I'm originally from Boston, and everybody always asks me why I don't have a Boston accent. And it's for basically that same reason. I was like, the Boston accent isn't very nice. And I just got, sort of trained myself out of it at some point. If you ever talked to my mom, or, sort of most of my friends, my family from home, you would know that's where they're from. But that's a funny story. So when people hear your story here, and if they want to reach out to you, what would be the best way to get hold of you?
Instagram, Baywap Design. And Baywap, again, a lot of people ask me like, what's the story behind Baywap? Baywap is a Newfie term as well. So that's why I use it. And only people from Newfoundland would know that. So, but yeah, Baywap Design, BAYWOP Design. Yeah, okay. Baywap Design.
Okay, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. And then last question, Jacqueline, is what would be a piece of advice you would give to someone, maybe in your shoes a few years back, kind of getting their real estate journey started? What would you tell them?
Don't procrastinate on the systems and processes and the networking that you are going to need for success and scalability. Because if you procrastinate on it, that could end up being your biggest liability. That is good. And advice I will try to take myself. That's I think, the more the deeper you get into it, the more you realize how important the systems are, how it's hard to sort of keep with everything if you don't. I always say curate and collaborate. Perfect. Well, I think that's a good note to go out on, curate and collaborate. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was great to talk to you and hear your story. I think, like I said, really, really cool stuff. I think it's very, very interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Absolutely. All right. Well, have a good day, everyone. Goodbye.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.